How's it going, everybody? My name is Aaron Young, and today I want to talk to you about a camera that I just found out existed probably about a month ago, and I was fascinated by it. I was impressed that it ever even existed, to be honest with you, but sure enough, it does, and it seems to be kind of a rare camera. From what I can tell, it did not sell very well, so I'd like to kind of see if I can figure out why exactly that was, because in 2004, I would say this camera is actually kind of decently spec'd. So like I said, 2004 was when it released. It is the Canon Powershot Pro. It is, well, actually it is the Powershot Pro1 is its official name. So it's not the most handsome looking bridge camera. You've got your grip over here and then your lens all the way on this side. It's a little funky looking. That actually kind of drew my attention quite a bit, was the look of it. But I think I see why they did that look, and that is because the controls on this camera are fantastic. Like, they are all where you want them to be. You can even hit the mode dial with your thumb. And I know you can do that on a lot of cameras, but the way that you can access it while you're in the viewfinder is pretty phenomenal to me. As you can see, it's a prosumer bridge camera. So it's not going to be interchangeable lenses. It's going to be a fixed setup with a zoom lens. This lens is actually a 28 to 200 equivalent. Which is pretty much going to cover about all the focal lengths you're going to want from it. There's definitely cameras that have more, like the super zoom Nikon that came out a few years ago that can shoot like craters on the moon, but that's not usually very practical except for maybe shooting the moon. But for a walk around camera, I really like this focal length. 28 to 200 is perfect for me. Almost every shot I ever take is going to be between 80 and probably about 80 and 135, so it's perfect for me. I like to be able to shoot wide when I need to, but I'm not a super wide kind of guy. So I think it's perfect. Now, one thing you might have noticed about the lens is that red ring, and you Canon fans out there are going to know that that red ring means an L lens. And you might be asking, why would Canon put an L lens, or at least an L lens ring, on a bridge camera? And that was a question I asked myself when I saw the camera. I thought it was fake. I thought maybe somebody had like put a rubber band around it, like a red band or a red piece of tape to make it look like an L lens, but no, it is real, and it kind of looks like those really cheap Amazon cameras, or not even Amazon, I think they're on Wish cameras right now, but I can guarantee you this takes better photos. I don't even have to review the camera to know that, but I'm going to do that anyway. And also it is a lot better built, let's just say that. So I already told you I like the way it's shaped. Even though it looks a little funky, I do love it for the ergonomics. It is perfect. You've got room for one hand on the lens, one hand on the grip. You can reach every control with one hand. It's even got a top LCD with a light built in. You probably can't see that light working, but the last DSLR I had didn't even have a top LCD with a light built in. And now I shoot mirrorless, so I don't really use the top LCD if I even have one. Now, another great feature it has is going to be something that a lot of people want on new cameras, and that is going to be the, let me see if I can get it going. That's going to be the pop-out screen, which is also a fully tiltable LCD display. And let me tell you something, this display for its era is phenomenal. Like, this display looks really good. Like, if this was the first camera you picked up that was older than 2005, you probably would not be impressed with the display. But if you're familiar with how cameras from this era looked, especially on the screens, you're going to be impressed, trust me. It's a small display, but it is more than clear enough to figure out if you got a sharp picture or not. Let me get to the price real quick. I just want to touch on that. You can get this camera for as low as $40. Can you imagine buying an L lens, a Canon L lens for $40 and getting the camera for free? Of course, it's not going to be like, you know, oh my God, my pro camera costed $40. But you know what? For the novelty, it's kind of awesome. I did pay $100 for this camera, and that's because it came with everything. This camera was, as you can see, I've got the box right here. This camera was an estate sale find, and it came complete in the box, and as far as they could tell, and to be honest, as far as I could tell when I opened it, never been used. The box has some normal wear and tear on it, but it has the original battery still in the shrink wrap. It has the charger, it has the cables, it has the CD, it has the manuals, all of it's there. It even comes with one thing that I never take off the camera except to demonstrate it. It comes with a nice lens hood that fits perfectly. It looks a lot better on the camera than without. And, you know, it's impressive to me that back in that era, Canon was still trying to push the boundaries even with their bridge cameras, because if you go back to that time, the market for bridge cameras was very packed, and there were a lot of funky looking cameras. Digital was still new, so people didn't exactly know what they wanted. So you've got tons of different designs and tons of different manufacturers making these cameras, and so it was actually a very profitable market for the time. And so Canon wanted to make a camera that was like the ultimate holy grail bridge camera, which I think to some extent they succeeded for this time. Like if you bought a camera in 2004, I think you'd be happy with it. But you might not be happy with the original price because it was $1,000, I believe, $1,000 plus tax. And for a bridge camera, that is very expensive. I'm pretty sure you could buy one of their DSLRs entry level for less than that. And of course, with the bigger sensor of the DSLR, it would probably produce higher resolution images, or at least better quality, depth of field, and things like that. But you know what? I still wouldn't count this camera out. I bought it because potentially I thought it could make a good daylight shooter. The ISO range is only 50 to 400, so I wouldn't be exactly pushing this thing at night unless it was on a tripod and I was doing long exposures, which I might try that out and see what it looks like, but we'll see. I will say 50 to 400, you would expect 400 to be a pretty clear image, but think about your modern camera that has 6400, 12,800 and higher. I would expect 400 on this camera to probably be about as noisy as 3200 on a modern camera. I haven't tested 400 yet. I've only shot it up to 200, and actually I was pretty impressed with how 200 looks, so I'm hopeful for 400. I will take some test shots with it and we'll see, you know, how it looks, and I'll try to compare all the ranges side by side, maybe take the same shot at each ISO, and you can compare for yourself, see how you feel about it. I did take some test shots with this camera yesterday. I'll put up some portraits I took with it, and it actually impressed me so far. I was mostly shooting at ISO 50, so I was getting very clear images. The resolution was far better than I expected, and the lens quality as far as sharpness and like IQ just looked like I could not believe how good it looked. Like I was stunned, and I sent some photos to some friends and, you know, asked them, what camera do you think this was taken with? Most of them thought I took it with like one of my main cameras, like my Canon M6 or M5. But no, I took it with this, and I think that that is a good sign. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this camera out and I'm going to test it some more. Right up there. Alright, now that plane's gone, we're going to take this camera out and I am going to test it some more. I'll probably take it to my local little city area, which would be downtown Greensboro in North Carolina. And what I'll try to do is I'll try to get some good test shooting out there, like testing different varieties of shooting, like maybe moving subjects versus still, different ISO ranges, different situations, to see how it does. I really want to test it, put it through its paces. But you know what? I have a good feeling about this camera. I think it's going to turn out to be a pretty decent walk-around, like, portable camera. Like, if you don't want to carry all your gear with an interchangeable lens camera, this could be a good alternative, and for not very much money. So I think we're going to go down there. We're going to talk about the other pros and cons of this camera, and I'm going to show you some more pictures I've taken. So let's get to it. Alright, so I just got downtown. It's been raining all morning. It kind of slowed to a drizzle and then became just cloudy over the last hour or so. It hasn't rained in a little while, but we still have a lot of overcast and clouds, which is my favorite to work in. I love it right after it rains. This lighting is so like soft and just even over everything. And basically, if it stays like this, you can just shoot all day, and I love that. So we're going to be testing everything that I can with this camera. I'm going to try to put it through its paces with all the settings. I'm I'm not really worried about testing video because I really don't think anybody's going to buy this for a video camera. I might take a few sample clips. We'll see how that goes. But as far as like autofocusing, I think the autofocusing is probably going to be a little slow, but hopefully it'll still be accurate. I'll try to report whether or not it misses focus a lot or not. I'm also going to test the manual focusing, since historically with bridge cameras, manual focusing isn't really something you want to use, or in many cases it's not even usable at all. So hopefully the manual focusing works pretty well. I think it will. I've already tested it a little bit and I kind of like it. So I'll get into more detail about how that works in a little while. I'm hoping to get a variety of images to kind of give you a good idea of how this camera performs day to day. And when we come back, we'll go over what I got. We'll go over the pros and the cons, and hopefully we get some good images. All right, I'll see you in a minute. Alright, I'm wet. The camera is probably too wet, but I've been shooting for a couple of hours and I think I got some good stuff, so I'm gonna go get something to eat and we're gonna take a look at what we got. So before we get to the photos, I just want to do a quick little overview of the camera after shooting it. Some pros and cons, some things I noticed about it. One of those things being the zoom. It's not very fast, as you can see. It's not the fastest zoom. It is electronically coupled. It's not a helicoid or physical zoom. But I didn't actually find that to be too severe because it makes you kind of pick a focal length and stick with it, which I really enjoy. And not only that, but it actually marks the focal lengths on the camera lens itself. So it helps you determine where to shoot. And so I would usually just set it and shoot there. Another thing I noticed about the camera that I really liked, I actually saw this when I got it, was that it has a light on the top LCD. Now, that's not going to do much good in daylight shooting, but if you wanted to do nighttime, like long exposures, it would be very nice to preview your settings to press that button, because you don't always want to look at this bright screen. You could just click that, see what your settings are set to, and just click it off. So the autofocus on this camera is not the fastest, as I suspected, but if you set it to the center focal point, it tends to be quick enough for what most people would need. It's not going to blow any minds. It's not probably going to be the greatest for sports, but for just standard street photography, and if your subject is large enough in frame, you shouldn't have any problem focusing on it. Another feature about this camera I really liked was on the top of the camera, it has a hotkey that lets you change the metering. Like, you probably can't see that, but I'm changing the metering right now with this button, and so it's a really fast way to just change the metering while you're looking down the viewfinder of the camera. So if you're worried about exposure and you shoot in something like aperture priority like I do, it's super useful. So when I'm shooting with this camera, I pretty much use the viewfinder exclusively, but if you are one of those people that likes using a rear screen, this display probably will not disappoint. It tilts, it rotates everywhere. If you need to get a low shot, you can set it like this and have the camera very low for a good, like maybe you want to take a picture from the point of view of a puddle or a point of view of the ground. It's very good for that. Let's see, I'm trying to think of any real cons to this camera. I would say that the only real one I can find is the focusing so far. Maybe once I review the images, the noise will prove to be an issue, but from the test shots I've taken and edited so far, that is definitely not an issue. As for battery life, that's another really good pro. I've only been using one battery this whole time. I've probably had the camera on for a few hours at this point solid, and have been having very good battery life. Now, granted, it does take a very large BP 511 battery for a Canon DSLR, so I would hope the battery life would be decent, but that's not always guaranteed, so I am very happy with the battery life. Now that's probably all I have to say about the camera itself. Maybe one more thing is the build quality. Very good for a prosumer camera. This is probably one of the best built bridge cameras I've ever used. So with all that out of the way, let's go on and move over and look at some images, okay? So real quick, I just want to go over the images I got today. Overall, I'd say this camera is actually really, really good for its age and for what it is, being a bridge camera. The lens in particular really impressed me compared to others. There is still some color fringing and aberrations and things like that, but it's not nearly as pronounced as most bridge cameras I've worked with. Now, I will say, once you get up to 400 on the ISO, it definitely takes quite a hit, but 50 to 200 is actually pretty good, and I would say 400 is still usable, especially if it's just your, for fun, day-to-day camera. Overall, I'd say that this camera is probably going to be in my bag a little more often, because I want to challenge myself, but at the same time, in the daylight, this camera is actually very easy to shoot with. As for the manual focusing, it's by far the best I've ever used on a bridge camera. It's literally just you hold your thumb on a button while you turn the zoom ring, and it magnifies the center of the image and gives you a pretty clear indication of whether you're in focus or not. Including a little range meter on the right side of the screen. But overall, I really think this camera did extremely well, especially when you compare it to other cameras of its time. And so I was very happy with it, and I hope this video was informative for you. If it was, feel free to follow me on social media. I'll put all of that in the description below. And subscribe if you want to see more. Give me some suggestions for other old cameras if you'd like, or newer cameras, whatever you want to see. And thanks for watching.